you, LeBoomington, for all that you do. Also, if you have feedback from like an editor's perspective that these rolling starts are a pain in the ass for you, just give us that
Yeah.
feedback. Huge shout out to our sponsor, Playa3ull Games. They are inspired by gamers and funded by their community. They have a epic game on the Epic Games Store, a third-person shooter called Nexus. Hop on in there and check that out. They're also currently selling nodes, so if you're interested, check that out at their website, playable.games. That is a 3 instead of a B on Playable. Now strap in for the rest of this episode of Interlinked. Before we started recording, we were just talking about all the breaking news going on Coinbase. They've gotten hit by like a 1, 2, 3 punch over the last few days. S&P 500 listing, huge hack where I'm going from memory here. So name, last 4 digits of social, birthday, phone number, photo of your government ID. So, I mean, a monumental, in my opinion, fuck up. And then on top of that, they're getting investigated by the SEC, as I saw on X, because they're being accused of pumping their user numbers. So hopefully most of the people that got hacked were fake, but I don't think that's going to be quite the case.
Yeah, look, this is to me one of the wildest things because of the way it was hacked. They're offshore employees, or I'm assuming they're employees. They could be, some other sort of company that they've hired to do that. I don't know that that was disclosed or not. I don't know if they work directly for Coinbase or from another company, but apparently, I guess they're not paying him enough money. Somebody came to him and was like, "Hey, I'll give you, I don't know." I don't know how much money. I'm sure it wasn't that much to give me all the names, addresses, date of birth, phone numbers, social security numbers, IDs. And they were like, oh, sure. Yeah, that's a good amount of money. Here's all that information. And like you, my wife gets multiple daily text messages saying your Coinbase, please click here to, accept the Coinbase verification code that's coming to her phone. So I'm assuming someone keeps trying to break in, and, it's a little nervous on Coinbase as far as their security. And is it safe to leave it there? That's another question. I mean, we always say your keys, your wallet, make sure you keep it off, make sure it's your keys, don't have a hot wallet, and certainly don't use a centralized exchange. But so many people use Coinbase. It's so easy to trade in and out. I mean, I use it all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
is it safe?
Fuck, I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, I mean, because there's 2 ways to look at those scams. Either someone is trying to brute force their way into the account and it's triggering all these codes. But I actually think that's also a spear phishing technique where they want you to click on the link, they want you to call the number so that they can get whatever information that's needed. Now, on the Social Security front, what they're claiming, based on what I saw from the Brian Armstrong video and reports on Twitter, is that they only got the last 4 digits of the social. I mean, one thing to remember here is at this point, everybody's information, I think, is leaked all over the place. We got to pause right here. Jared, do I still have you?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
you froze and then you came back. I don't know if it's me or you.
Yep. Okay. Same here. My VPN is off, so hopefully that will just be a temporary thing. But just in case that got missed off, I'll drop from where it froze or pick up from where it froze. But it seems like it's only the last 4 digits of the social. The other thing is between all these hacks, AT&T, fucking our own government, like at this point, I have to just accept that all of my information is just floating out there on the freaking dark web or probably the regular web at this point. And you just got to put in these sort of like security practices. But I think the big winner here from this hack is JP Morgan, Fidelity, all of the traditional brokerage accounts, because it's going to be pretty tempting for people just to
I
have
lost.
their, oh, what's going on here? Let's see. I don't have my VPN on.
Is it you or me? I can't tell.
I can't tell either.
It doesn't say unstable internet anywhere.
No, it doesn't say it on my end either. God, now Zoom's probably getting hacked.
I,
um,
I missed the whole thing.
all right. Sorry, LeBoomington, this is going to be a nightmare. But from the top, I think the only like the compromise on social security was the last four digits of the number. Thankfully, that being said, at this point, I think we all have to just assume our information is just out there on the ether between like hacks of telecommunications. I know AT&T, there's that big scandal recently with like China having access to all that data. We've had our own government get their information hacked on those legacy systems. So you really got to be careful to, make sure you're using sophisticated long passwords, Face ID. I mean, I'm not a cybersecurity expert, so I really can't give any concrete advice, but it's certainly very scary to have all of that information out there floating in the ether.
Yeah, and to me, this is also going to be another sort of round for the hackers to say, "Oh, you saw Brian Armstrong's new post and all the issues with Coinbase. We're just doing a security checkup. Let's go ahead and click here and make sure that all your security is up to date." And boom, it's a brand new phishing scam, which to me would be a really good one because everyone's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, Coinbase is hacked. This makes sense. Yeah, thank you Coinbase for looking out for us." And it's actually not Coinbase reaching out. So guys, be extremely vigilant. If you get a text, email, obviously phone call, security settings are good. Redo them. I would go ahead and like Nick's saying, redo your password, get a better one. Make sure your two-factor authentication is in a proper form. And a lot of people are saying don't connect your phone to it because your phone could be hacked, and then they could text that phone number and get that whatever 6-digit number to log into your account. So just be really vigilant. Make sure you speak with somebody, and if you're not trading some of your coins, maybe it would be a good idea to take them off and put them in a cold storage somewhere. Ledger, Trezor, I mean, that's maybe a good idea. I know it's a pain in the butt to move it back to the hot wallet to trade it. It's much slower, but it's better than losing your money, in my opinion.
No doubt. And that's why I've become a very firm believer in spreading out my chips. I mean, I think the big winners here are going to be, I mean, the on-chain, they've been taking a lot of like sort of like L's recently because there was that Windows like issue where they're like, oh, your private keys could be compromised. That got me thinking, I'm like, how many people are going to self-storage if you have to be worried about these like kernel level, that's above my cybersecurity pay grade, but some sort of like internal level compromise. Now you've got the exchanges potentially be compromised. I think the big winners here are going to be BlackRock, Fidelity, JP Morgan, all of these, or Merrill Lynch. Well, Merrill Lynch isn't supporting crypto yet. Please, please, Merrill, start supporting crypto so I don't have to move money around. But really, I mean, like the centralized brokerage accounts are going to be the big winners here, where people are going to be like, okay, JP Morgan's been securing equities, since before the Great Depression. Like, I'm just going to have my big bag sitting at freaking JP Morgan so I can sleep at night and not have to worry about that. Because, I mean, this shit is scary. I mean, crypto is hard enough. Even if you don't get rugged or if you don't get drained, crypto is already hard enough. So this is just adding, some scary complexity to it.
Yeah, I'm sure you remember, like 4 years ago when MetaMask had all the issues with the NFTs and OpenSea. If you, somehow sign some transaction, you didn't even have to sign transactions, I think, at some point, and they were just taking NFTs out of your wallet. I remember that was a big issue. I believe that has been that sort of security leak has been fixed with MetaMask, but that was another big one where we're like, okay, now same kind of question, where do we go? I mean, do we have to have a hard, like a cold storage for everything, put it into a hardware wallet, do the transaction, put it back into the cold storage, and then maybe swap hot wallets maybe every week, month? It's over, even for us who've been in it and could do it. It's so many steps. It's like, man, I'll just let it sit there. I'm not going to trade it. I mean, that's kind of my thought if I had to do all that, honestly, because I love Coinbase when it's like, oh, okay, good. We're at sort of what I think maybe a little bit of a top. Let's go ahead and sell into some, stables. And then when it goes back down a little bit, you're like, all right, cool. Now we can put it back up and, buy it again. And I like doing that. But honestly, if it was on a cold storage and I had to, move it to a hot wallet, connect to Uniswap or whatever I'm doing, swap it around, move it back, I probably wouldn't.
And recently, my faith in cold storage has been shaken a little bit because Race for the Win broke this inside of Neo Tokyo's Discord. But now the Ledger, I want to say it's the Ledger X or the Ledger S, whichever was the ones that had the buttons, no touchscreen, no Bluetooth, which I was like, great. When it comes to security, I thought that simpler, better, no Bluetooth connection, if it's unplugged, like I can feel relatively safe. And then with no real formal announcements, at least ones that really penetrated the experts, they stopped supporting a bunch of NFTs. So now you can't even transfer the NFTs out of those hardware wallets. You have to go buy a new ledger, buy the upgraded version of the ledger that not to mention just from a price standpoint, like you're being walked up from, I believe I bought those for sub $100. And now in order to future proof what I thought I didn't have to, I'm going to have to pick up a $350 device. And I have to pick up multiple because I had multiple ledgers. So like it's such a I mean, that just like really rattled me where I'm like, come on, you took like one of the stable things in crypto and now made it this big fucking clusterfuck. But I guess for the NFT communities, people are going to be diamond handing out of necessity.
Man, yeah, no, that's actually really an interesting idea to, it's like it's an iPhone, like the first generation iPhone. Well, we don't have support for that. So now you got to buy our new device. Same thing with, all the Google phones and, all Samsungs. Wow. It's I have an original Trezor from a long time ago, and I think that one still has support because every time I log in, there's some new update that I have to do. But I do have the new Stacks, which is like the iPhone looking ledger. It is pretty cool. I switched from Trezor to Ledger for like my new cold storage going forward because I thought that was cool. And then but that's kind of depressing that you have to upgrade if you hadn't originally bought that. And NFTs are hit hard enough. I don't think we need any, but it's good. Yeah, you got a diamond handed. And speaking of NFTs, though, I did see that Yuga Labs sold CryptoPunks to
Really? I didn't hear
yes.
this. What's the good
Yeah,
word?
it's just the intellectual property, and I think it's I just randomly saw it. I wanted to bring it up. Hopefully, you knew something about it, but if not, I can look it up real quick. But I think it's almost like a decentralized organization, and I thought that was very cool because I didn't know what Yuga Labs in the beginning were doing with CryptoPunks anyway. Okay, it's the Infinite Node Foundation, and they sold it just like 3 days ago, I believe. So they have now the intellectual property, and I believe the original creators of the CryptoPunks are inside of the foundation, if I'm not mistaken.
Got
That's
it.
just yeah. So I think it's it's good. It's probably where it needs to land, in my opinion. I mean, look, who cares about my opinion? But I always thought it was strange that Yuga bought CryptoPunks, and why? They were fine where they were. I guess Larva Labs needed some money, and at that point, Yuga Labs had all the money, so why not? But yeah, there's a couple big sales recently. I mean, that's certainly the one NFT that's survived out of all of them.
Yeah, the Dark Lord has certainly been pumping it too. Becker, I think, purchased some and then has been taking some victory laps. I mean, it's just a tough price point. I'm a big believer that like I get very nervous when I can only buy one NFT because it's so hard to stay emotionally abstracted from fungible tokens. You put a picture on it, it becomes your pet real quick.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep anything that I plan on selling, I have a wallet called the Slaughterhouse so I don't get emotionally attached. I'm like, okay, remember, like the family only eats if we kill these.
Amazing. Yeah, see, we've got our, our special NFTs here. I mean, those are ones obviously I personally would never sell it, but I have gotten a couple of offers on it's just some random NFTs that I picked up 4 years ago. They weren't horrible offers either, and I was like, certainly way less than I bought them for. But Habbo, I think the Habbo, like the hotel, was like the game from a long time ago, and they came out with NFTs 4 years ago. Those were pretty interesting, and getting zero point 0.1, maybe even zero point 0.2 ETH offer, I was like, interesting. Somebody really wants that.
Yeah.
I almost sold it, but again, I was like, nah, that's on a hardware. I'd have to go plug it in. I'm like, that's not worth point 0.2 ETH.
Too much friction. It might be
Exactly.
soon. Obviously, ETH has come back with an absolute vengeance, ripping off of that, sort of low. It's going to be interesting now, like what the next step happens to be. Like on the macro front, obviously the China, it's not a trade deal, but de-escalation of like tariffs, that going down in Switzerland, that obviously had a very positive effect on the market. And then you've got inflation coming in super, super light. Now, I'm not qualified to make this accusation, so I'm gonna allegedly. I've had sources in the macro front, shout out Darius Dale, say that, this looks a little fishy. That you're having pretty much all of the metrics that the Fed cares about from an inflation indicator standpoint cratering, where you've got all the rest of the data not really matching from cost of labor going up, cost of goods going up because of some of these tariffs that are now in effect. And then you have like a broad-based lowering of inflation seems a little fishy. And then you've got Trump sending what are essentially like late night drunk you up tweets to Powell being like, just do it. It'd be beautiful if you do it. Don't get in the way. The economy, it's ready to blossom, Jerome. Just let it go. Just lower those rates. Just I'm like, God, if you're saying that on truth, I don't know what the fuck you're texting him.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the real conversation when he actually picks up the phone? Because, if he doesn't do it, he's like, Jerome's a fool. I mean, I was like, what? This is so funny. Yeah. It's like, please, let's go. You got to do it. And then all of a sudden he does. And he's like, all right, this guy's a fool. I'm not going to replace him. We're good buddies, but he's a fool. It's like, yeah, the messaging is definitely interesting. And the China, if you want to almost call it a tariff ceasefire for, a little while, it certainly helps the economy, or at least, the S&P and certainly crypto. But, what happens when that comes closer to the edge and we don't have that definitive agreement where you can come forward and say, look, because I think honestly, the China US agreement, whatever that's going to be, whatever that is hammered out to be, that should send the rocket up, in my opinion, when that is done. Because I know we're waiting. It's like, oh, well, we have a sort of this deal maybe for, what, in 90 days, 120 days. Let's see. And then, bam, that happens. I think that's going to be a very important number. And if Trump gets his way and Jerome starts printing more money, well, then, you know, even the 4-year cycle, I don't think can handle that. I think we just like, I don't even know where it ends. If those two things come together, it's like the perfect storm that could shoot it extremely high. But yeah, the macro is definitely in a weird spot. One of the weirdest I can remember.
Yeah, there's definitely like a two-edged sort of Damocles that's hanging over the market. One edge is that Chinese trade deal. As we said, that's now been kicked down the road. So that's just going to be sort of this looming uncertainty as we approach sort of the end of that sort of 90-day pause or 90-day rollback in tariffs. The other edge of the sort of Damocles is absolute fiscal orgy of spending. So anybody that thought like, hey, we're putting Donald Trump in office, he's going to take a hatchet, he's going to balance the budget, we're going to have Doge in here, he's going to cut everything to the bone. Let's do a quick score check. So the original sort of proposal was we're going to bring Doge in, we're going to cut $2 trillion off of the budget. We're at 200 billion, and now we're getting the news that Elon's going to go back to Tesla, kind of take a back seat or at least more of an advisory role on the Doge side. I actually heard on the Pomp podcast that could likely be because, and this is pure hearsay, but I trust Pomp's research. He had been hearing it internally that essentially he's a special employee of the government or some sort of vernacular around those lines, which means you can only work for the government for a limited piece of time because you don't have to divest your assets. And apparently we're coming up or have reached the end of that window. And that's why Elon has to like step away. But put that to the side for a second. So 2 trillion turned into 200 billion. Even if they sort of like walked back 2 trillion to 1 trillion, that would mean that Trump would spend 36 trillion over 4 years and save 1 trillion. Now, with what's coming in the big, beautiful, bodacious deal that's coming down, is like I think something like 4 trillion in tax cuts and 1.5 trillion in like reduction of spending. So we're gonna blow this deficit wide open any way that you skin it. We're gonna growing your way out of debt is a myth. It has never happened in the history of the United States. It is a boogeyman that people bring out to be like, no, we're gonna take out all this regulation, the economy, it's just gonna boom, it's just gonna grow. You know, it's just rhetoric because there's never any numbers attached to it. And the flagship face of that grow your way out of the debt is Reagan. And Reagan didn't grow his way out of the debt. He blew up the deficit by like 80% in 4 years. So this like myth I think is going on, and shout out to Darius Dale again because he's been hammering on this research. The Republicans and the Democrats blow up the deficit, blow up the every single time, and Republicans as of late, since the World War II era, have been blowing it up worse than the Democrats. They just do it with tax cuts and sort of like stimulus for the rich. Democrats do the stimulus for the poor. Wall Street sort of like wins either way. So the other sort of Damocles, to make a long point long, is the bond market. Who is going to keep paying for this debt when essentially the TLT representative of the 20-year is trading like a fucking shitcoin? Like, I don't know how that ends up happening unless that's being included in, hey, China, we're going to lower these tariffs, but please, please, please buy our bonds. I mean, when you've got Bitcoin ripping, when you've got the stock market ripping, you've got gold in this crazy bull market. I mean, Darius, thankfully, I trade a lot of my money based off his signals, had pivoted his community out of bonds and said, hey, instead of doing a 60-40, he does a 60-30-10, 60% stocks, 30% bonds, 10% Bitcoin. He swapped out that bond section for gold, which was pretty fucking smart. And it's just hard to imagine any sort of price sensitive buyer buying US debt right now.
Now a word from our sponsors.
What's up, crypto gamers? Shout out to our sponsor, Myria. Myria is revolutionizing Ethereum-based gaming with its powerful L2 scaling solution. Think zero gas fees, instant transactions, free NFT minting, and more. Myria offers a suite of tools that are tailor-built for game development, including game-specific SDKs, a spec'd-out marketplace, Web3 spiked leaderboards, new AI super tools, and more. All this fueled by a fleet of player-run nodes that are a breeze to operate and pump out daily rewards for supporting the ecosystem. Plus, check out Meta Rush, the Battle Royale obstacle runner by Myria Studios, dropping very, very soon.
Now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Wow, dude, that is a lot to unpack. You are freaking nailing it. Like, the 200 billion number. Yeah, I saw that the other day when, Tesla's in trouble now and everybody hates Tesla. And now it's like swapped where the Democrats hate it and the Republicans love it. And so now he's got to get back to work. And Doge, I think in the beginning where Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon were going to come together, and then they sort of had a fight about how it was going to be done. And then Vivek dropped out, and I think he's running for office was his excuse. And now Elon's there, and Elon is, I think, 100% right. I mean, he is gone. I don't think Doge is a thing anymore. I'm pretty sure that it's died. That whole entire issue was, now was that really just a stunt to, say, hey, all right, we're going to just turn up the spending and, but look at all this $200 billion we saved. And everyone's like, oh, that's a lot of money. And you're like, no, it's not even a speck. Like, it's not even worth thinking about. Like, all that rhetoric and waste of time really was useless. So, that's really interesting. And everybody was like, oh, Doge is going to come in and we're going to do all these great things. Sure, he found some stuff that's bad, but that doesn't really address the spending problem that we have. And if we're getting, saving $1 billion and spending an extra $4 billion in tax cuts, sure, tax cuts are great, but why don't we lower the spending with it? Otherwise, what's the point? Like, just keep spending. I mean, I don't know that that's even possible for the U.S. to ever bring that back. I think Clinton was the last time we didn't have a deficit. It was a short period of time, and it was like, I don't remember what what the upside was on that, but I mean, it was probably in the range of a couple hundred billion. It wasn't a lot. We're spending trillions, but hey, look, we're good this couple quarters. Hey, that's progress. But since then, it's been horrible. And then COVID just is a whole new level. And I think we're just going to stay in this whole new level. So what's the answer? Is it the reserve of Bitcoin and hope that they just beat the US dollars down so much that we just swap our Bitcoin in and now the entire debt's gone? I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting process.
Yeah, I mean, really, they're just going to have to figure out who is going to buy these bonds, because foreign entities, foreign nations, their percentage of bond holding has been going down. Private entities within the United States, that percentage has been going down. Who's been making up the difference? Americans, the American investor, and we are price sensitive investors. We want a return. We're not holding huge amounts of treasuries because we're a surplus nation and we needed something to do with all of those dollars that we're getting. We want to get a return. Now, what sort of return are they going to have to give on those bonds? What sort of equilibrium is going to be reached where people start to have hunger for bonds? Is it 5%? Is it 6%, 7%, 8%? When do bonds start looking juicy? And then how the fuck are we going to pay that interest if we're paying 8% on a huge number? It's a tough problem. I think the tariff situation is part of it, that, hey, this is a big, scary stick, especially to China, because they're already having economic troubles. They've already been experiencing a slowdown. There's sort of rumors coming out that there might be withdrawal issues at some of these banks. There's a lot going on there. So maybe that's like the sort of leverage to be like, hey, we're gonna need some bond issuance or some bond purchases. I mean, the good thing is Besson is an absolute shark, and he understands the currency market well. Obviously, he was part of that famous breaking of the sterling pound. So hopefully, we've got the right man in the job to figure out, hey, how the fuck are we going to sell these bonds? Because that is what could make this party come to a rearing stop, is if the bond market starts puking, we're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're right. We've got, all kind of like Federal Reserve buying it. I know China's been slowing down. I think Japan sort of bought some more, to kind of make up a little bit of that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the US, at the end of the day, taxpayers are what's holding everything. You've got, sort of large industrial, investors, obviously, that own a bunch of that. But, you're right. At some point when everything's ripping and Bitcoin's making its amazing percentages and equities are destroying it, why would you just sit there for a tiny little percentage? And if you up the percentage, how do we pay for it? I mean, it's like we're stuck. We got to figure something out. And I think that maybe the answer is that it's a global, like you're talking about, it's a global sort of issue. And I think it has to be addressed globally, because if each individual, nation state and its own economy is fixing things for itself, the other side's going to fight back, and they're going to do something that just throws a wrench in it. And you've got to come together to the table to get it all done. Otherwise, I don't know how it's possible. So it's definitely a quagmire. That's a great word for it.
And it's worth saying that, while there is this sort of Damocles, the bond market sort of Damocles has been hanging there for a long time. The Chinese edge is new as in relation to this tariff policy. But if for some reason that sword stays right where it's been for the last whatever decade, or certainly since COVID, then what do we have? We've got a metric fuck ton of new government spending. We've got a fiscal deficit, which is going to essentially be injected into the economy. That's going to improve liquidity. All of this stuff could lead to the dollar taking it on the chin, which is a boon for liquidity. So really, there's this big sort of like hanging doomsday scenario. But if that gets kicked out even 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, we could be in a situation where we've got an absolutely ripping market in both crypto and equities and sort of like precious commodities. and that could keep ripping. So, there's a reason why the people who make these decisions and make this money are some of the best paid in the world, because it's a hard job.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's unbelievable. And I know there's one other topic. I don't know if you wanted to finish anything on this, but there's one other topic I wanted to get to, which is the Trump meme coin. I know you and I had a really cool conversation about it, and the SEC put out all those sort of, it's not exactly a regulation, but when the SEC gives out a news press conference and says, "Here's what we're looking for in meme coins," it's pretty clear. And one of the things was it really can't have any utility. And I mean, the day after we had the podcast, Trump announces that, hey, you know what? I'm going to give tours to the White House. I'm going to have dinners to the top holders of this coin. And, it brings up sort of an interesting question or two, really. One is the personal sort of way that, as a president, you can't take money directly to you from foreign entities, right? Now, let's say Japan wants to make a deal, and all of a sudden they're like, you know what? I bet a good way to make a deal with Trump would be to go out and become the number one holder of the Trump coin. Now, the question is, does he make any money out of that? Right? Maybe not. Maybe some of his family members are there. And my guess is somebody has a liquidity pool set up. And, let's say his, foundation or the company that's underneath all of this has set up that pool. And, Japan comes in, buys this large chunk. Obviously, you're going to make some money out of that. Who does make that money? And is he actually personally, inflating his wealth based on the fact that he is the president? Now, what about if you own more of the Trump coin and you can have a dinner at the White House or get a tour of the White House? So this brings up that whole issue. And then the second part of that is based on the SEC and what they said about what is really okay with meme coins. Does this give utility to it? And now it's sort of outside of the safe harbor, if you want to call it that, the sort of the meme coin law is set up. Is it a utility to be able to go to dinner with him? Probably. What about a personal tour of the White House? I would think so. I mean, all you have to do is go and find out who the top holders are at any given time. And then there's tons of places that are tracking this. So you just go to the Explorer and find it. But it's like, that's an interesting sort of two-part question there. And does it violate the Constitution is really the question. I think a lot of people are bringing that up, and it's like, that's interesting. So, like, if you want to get a tariff deal, let's go buy the meme coin, and top holders are maybe going to get a meeting with him and say, hey, Mr. Trump, look, we own 10 billion of your coins. You should meet with us. I don't know. That's really interesting.
Yeah, legally, I'm not qualified to say. Morally, it seems reprehensible. Like, this is clear, in your face opportunities for corruption. If you can literally put a number on FaceTime with the president of the United States, that's not a direction that I necessarily want to head. It's also a little bit scary that, let's say, I don't think impeachment's likely, because I don't think it's even politically advantageous for the Democrats to take another swing at that. I mean, it blew up so hard in their face. Potentially that is the reason we have a Trump presidency, or certainly a contributing factor. But that being said, if you look into a situation where either, the Democrats flip Congress and the House or the Senate, or take the White House, like, you could end up with some serious retribution aimed at the crypto industry because it's being so synonymous with Trump. I also think we're going to see that pardon party at the end of this come out, and he's going to pardon his entire family because Biden set that precedent. And now you've got a really dangerous dynamic where it's now politically feasible to just pardon your entire family, and damn what they're doing on the back end. And obviously the Trump family, between, the Trump token, Truth and Liberty Fi, like, they're making a good amount of money in a space that they're regulating. And then you've got, sort of this whole, hey, Trump's going to be out here for Main Street. I don't know if anybody on Main Street still believes it, but I certainly do not. Like, I think the bond market broke Trump. And if he had originally thought that he was going to go down this Main Street road and that Wall Street was going to suffer, that clearly did not end up happening. And between, the tweets of now's a good time to buy before doing this sort of like policy, like all of this shit is so icky at the very least, let alone potentially, legally fraudulent.
Yeah, I mean, what if they set up a Discord for maybe like, if you hold a certain number of it and you get in there, and then within there you have the ability to go directly and to the Trump family and find out, hey, what do you know? And then they say, oh yeah, this is a good time to buy, or look at look at June 24th, right? And it's like it could lead to so many issues, and the constitutional issues of the president, emolument clause, I think is what they call it, where you get a certain amount of money and you're not supposed to get any other types of money. And then is it considered a bribe if someone buys the Trump token and gets a meeting with him? Worse than that, what if somebody gets pardoned and they were one of the top holders of the meme coin? It's like, wow. To me, it's like, whether or not it's a conflict, it certainly appears like one. And in my opinion, if I were president, why even do that? What's the point? And I never really understood the point of the meme coin. Was it to get his family money? Was it to set up something where people could actually go and get access to him? I don't know. And to me, it's interesting. Now, I don't know if he's getting any personal money out of it. I would imagine somebody in the family would have to. They've set it up, and maybe he just sets it out there and didn't make any money off of it. I don't know, but there's certainly that looming conflict issue of it just doesn't look right. It doesn't sit right when you just think about it. You're like, oh, there's so many problems that can arise from that. And to me, what's the difference of, Hunter Biden getting somebody from Ukraine to meet with, Joe? To me, I don't know that there's much difference between those two at that point.
No, or Nancy trading,
Yeah.
Nvidia stocks and then putting Nvidia into like a very advantageous like bill that got passed. Like all this is so corrupt. Now, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because I did buy some Trump coin. So my thesis is pretty simple. Trump coin had gotten crushed. I was like, might as well scoop up a bag. I'm not qualified to say, but I also feel like you don't have to be a doctor to diagnose a bullet wound, is a narcissist. And the coin is named Trump. I don't see him, letting that get absolutely eviscerated because he's got a giant ego. So I'm willing to take a flyer on Trump coin for that reason. So, if our country's going to get super fucked up, at least make a little bit of money. So maybe that's what they're thinking as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the timing of it was really interesting because it came out, before he was president. And I mean, it came out with the old SEC in there, and it came out with, in the middle of all of this controversy about what, crypto and who's going to start attacking it. And, now he's got a new SEC chairman in there, and, dropped all the different attacks on crypto. And it's like, wow. And then Melania token, I don't know what that does. That was an interesting sort of secondary token just to go out there. And I don't think it has any utility. Maybe that's truly just a meme coin. If you like Melania, buy it. If not, don't. But that's certainly not pumping as much as the Trump token.
Yeah, I'm personally keeping my cash on the side for the Baron 10K NFT package of just slightly different pictures of like Baron that I'm gonna go lever long.
Yeah, the Baron Trump NFT, that's going to be exciting. Yeah, and I mean, Trump had NFTs a long time ago where you got pieces of his suit. You had a dinner with him. I think he sold like tennis shoes, all kind of stuff. I mean, it was really an interesting scenario when he sort of jumped into the NFT market a while ago. But the new Trump coin definitely raises my question, and I see it, and it sort of evolves all the time, and it's just again got the potential for conflicts of interest rising at any given moment, from foreign dignitaries to, people who are getting pardoned to people who want to tour the White House. I don't know. The whole thing just, to me, maybe the office of president should be of a higher sort of caliber. Maybe not at this point in 2025. Maybe it doesn't matter anymore. Maybe I'm wrong and I just have sort of ideals from a long time ago. But yeah, like you said, buy the Trump token. When it's low, it's probably going to keep pumping because at least while he's in office, I would think. I think it's a good buy whenever it's low. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely my take as well. But obviously, as we've seen, like if you're playing in the meme coin game, it's a dangerous fucking game.
It's dangerous. Yeah, for sure. Meme coins are wild, just like NFTs were. And, I would love to see some NFTs come back. Maybe the next bear cycle. We'll see.
You and me both, dude. Maybe the bear and 10K package. That's what's going to kick off the bull run in NFTs again. Just bring in so much liquidity. Nation states buying NFTs.
Absolutely. That'd be amazing. I mean, Barron's the next president, right?
Strategic Baron Reserve. I'm all for it. Hell yeah,
I love
Jared.
it.
Anything else on your end before we wrap this
No,
up?
that was it. This was fun. I had a blast. I'm glad our internet stabilized.
Yeah, same here. I like closed a bunch of applications. Maybe it was like a RAM thing, but anyway, we got to figure it out. So, Jared, pleasure as always. Big shout out to the audience. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another episode. Definitely stay glued to the Neo Tokyo Twitter for any updates there. I know the MT Plays division, which I help schedule, has been ripping. So we had a really cool event with My Pet Hooligan and Super. Gave away 5K to some of the competitive winners there, hosted a bunch of games. It was super fun, had a bunch of people streaming. So definitely go and tune in to that if you're a gamer and want the potential to win some prizes while you're gaming. And as I said, we'll be back next week. Thanks, everybody.
Later, guys.